It's great that you love to argue, but you can't argue with the answer key. Hey, what's up everybody? Steve Schwartz here from LSAT Unplugged, joining you today to share what happened for me when I stopped arguing in LSAT logical reasoning. Before I get into it, a little bit about LSAT Unplugged. We offer live online classes via Zoom, on-demand video courses, small group coaching, and one-on-one coaching. Check out the links below this video to find out more and to book a call with me and my team. We'd love to help you out. So the reason I'm making this video is that I find a lot of students have difficulty accepting the fact that the LSAT makers set the rules of engagement and they're the ones who decide what's the correct answer, not you. If you find yourself arguing with the answer key, it may be that you're missing a small nuance in an answer choice that makes the right answer right and that makes the wrong answer ultimately wrong. Back when I was studying for the LSAT, I found myself constantly arguing with the LSAT test makers. I could not understand the reasoning behind why the right answers were right and why the wrong answers were wrong. But over time, I started to come around to their way of thinking, and I recognized that small modifier words can end up making all the difference. So if you have, for example, degrees of certainty like always, never, sometimes, the majority of the time, part of the time, infrequently, those modifiers make all the difference when it comes to LSAT logical reasoning questions, just like they make all the difference when it comes to the language in contracts. Take a look at your rental agreement for your apartment or dorm room, for example. You'll find all sorts of little hedge words or modifiers that, of course, matter a great deal if ever a disagreement should arise. Similarly, we have qualifiers in terms of the category of things we're discussing. For example, all people versus all people who study for the LSAT versus many people who study for the LSAT. If you miss even one of those little modifier words, that can make all the difference between getting an answer choice right versus getting it wrong. By the way, if you're struggling with these concepts, degree of certainty, category of things that they discuss, I cover all of this and more in my book, Mastering the LSAT. You can get your copy at lsatunplugged.com. So let's bring it back to my LSAT prep journey for a minute. Back when I first started studying for the LSAT, I was scored around a 152 on my first diagnostic test, and several of my subsequent practice tests did not really go much better. I ended up improving my score on test day to a 175. Part of the increase came from logic games, but a big chunk of it came from logical reasoning as well. I probably improved 10 points just on logical reasoning alone. And part of my journey to improving those 10 points just on logical reasoning alone was coming to see things from the test maker's point of view. I adopted that point of view when I started writing out my review process. I started documenting what gave me trouble about a question. Was it the stimulus, the question stem, or the answer choices? If it was in the stimulus, was it their failure to include key indicator words for evidence and conclusion, or subconclusion, or counter premise? Was it the inclusion of difficult words like unless, except, until, and without, which, by the way, can be difficult to translate into standard conditional language? And because I misunderstood how unless works, I was arguing with the test makers. Once I realized that unless simply means if not, that was one of several small things that, when combined, completely changed the game for me. Back to the review process. I also determined whether my mistake was stemming from the question stem, if there was unfamiliar wording in the question stem, or I just didn't understand what the key phrase actually meant. That could lead me down the wrong path. And finally, you have the answer choices, tempting wrong answers and unappealing right answers. A lot of the time, I'd be tempted by a wrong answer choice only to neglect the key few words at the end of the line, the end of the choice, that made all the difference in turning an answer choice from right to wrong. Because of course, partially wrong means all wrong when it comes to logic. Similarly, there would be unappealing right answer choices, and I had to figure out what made the choice unappealing for me, but what ultimately makes it correct, because you have traps of encouragement towards the wrong answer and traps of discouragement away from the right answer. And only through repeatedly exposing yourself to the tricks and traps that you are uniquely prone to falling for can you avoid making the same mistakes again. And this review process that I engaged in is what ultimately led me to create the Socratic review method framework that I include in my LSAT prep courses, as well as in my book, Mastering the LSAT, available at lsatmasterybook.com. Anyway, folks, that's all for now. I hope you found this video helpful, and in the meantime, I'll wish you all the best and take care.